LMPD executed a search warrant at 3003 Springfield Drive, apartment 4. This was Miss Breonna Taylor's residence. The officers were advised by superiors to knock and announce their presence in serving this specific search warrant. The scope of our investigation did not include the obtainment of that warrant by LMPD's Criminal Interdiction Division. Federal law enforcement partners are conducting that investigation. Sergeant Mattingly and Detectives Cosgrove and Hankinson had no known involvement in the preceding investigation or obtainment of the search warrant. They were called into duty as extra personnel to effectuate the service of the search warrant. They only had information conveyed to them during their prior briefing. Evidence shows that officers both knocked and announced their presence at the apartment. The officers' statements about their announcement are corroborated by an independent witness who was near in proximity to apartment 4. In other words, the warrant was not served as a no-knock warrant. When officers were unable to get anyone to answer or open the door to apartment 4, the decision was made to breach the door. After breaching the door, Sergeant Mattingly was the first and only officer to enter the residence. Sergeant Mattingly identified two individuals standing beside one another at the end of the hall, a male and a female. In his statement, he says that the male was holding a gun, arms extended in a shooting stance. Sergeant Mattingly saw the man's gun fire, heard a boom, and immediately knew he was shot as a result of feeling heat in his upper thigh. Kenneth Walker fired the shot that hit Sergeant Mattingly, and there's no evidence to support that Sergeant Mattingly was hit by friendly fire from other officers. Mr. Walker admitted that he fired one shot and was the first to shoot. In addition to all the testimony, the ballistics report shows that the round that struck Sergeant Mattingly was fired from a 9mm handgun. The LMPD officers fired .40 caliber handguns. Sergeant Mattingly returned fire down the hallway. Mattingly fired 6 shots. Almost simultaneously, Detective Cosgrove, also in the doorway, shot 16 times. This all took place in a matter of seconds. In total, 6 bullets struck Ms. Taylor. Medical evidence obtained by our team indicates that only one shot was fatal. Further medical evidence shows that Ms. Taylor would have died from the fatal shot within a few seconds to 2 minutes after being struck. Detective Hankinson fired his weapon 10 times, including from an outside sliding glass door and through a bedroom window. Some bullets traveled through apartment 4 and into apartment 3 before some exited that apartment. At the time, 3 residents of apartment 3 were at home, including a male, a pregnant female, and a child. There is no conclusive evidence that any bullets fired from Detective Hankinson's weapon struck Ms. Taylor. The KSP ballistics analysis did not identify which of the 3 officers fired the fatal shot. After receiving that information, I asked the FBI crime lab to conduct its own analysis to see if they reached the same results. The FBI ballistics analysis concluded the fatal shot was fired by Detective Cosgrove. Our office looked at both reports to determine if there were major differences in the procedures used by each lab that would have led the FBI to identify who fired the fatal shot. Both law enforcement agencies use similar equipment and analysis, and each lab is highly respected for their work. There was nothing our investigators could point to, nor anything provided by the respective agencies that directly explains why one lab made the call while another did not. I think it is worth repeating again that our investigation found that Mattingly and Cosgrove were justified in their use of force after having been fired upon by Kenneth Walker. Secondary to this justification, the KSP and FBI ballistics analysis reached different conclusions, creating a reasonable doubt in the evidence about who fired the fatal shot. I certainly understand the public's desire for answers, and many have questioned the length of the investigation. Simply put, we had to try every means necessary to determine who fired the fatal shot before the investigation could be completed. After hearing the evidence from our team of prosecutors, the grand jury voted to return an indictment against Detective Hankinson for 3 counts of wanton endangerment for wantonly placing the 3 individuals in apartment 3 death. The charge of wanton endangerment in the first degree is a Class D felony, and if found guilty, the accused can serve up to 5 years for each count. Kentucky law states that a person is guilty of wanton endangerment in the first degree when, under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life, he wantonly engages in conduct which creates a substantial danger of death or serious physical injury to another person. My office is prepared to prove these charges at trial. However, it's important to note that he is presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Hey, good afternoon from ABC News.
All right, so today's date is September 26, 2020, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most, Will Buchanan. On the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try and make sense of it all. Before I do get started, usually I do try to sit there and say this is an adult, not that it's an adult podcast, but I will try to control my language. But after this week, it is going to be a little difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and do the best I can, and hopefully you guys will understand. Aside from that, I want to go ahead and show that first because, number one, we are going to address the elephant in the room. But there's actually a lot more to that story that I want to go into, and I wanted to go ahead and show Kentucky AG Daniel Cameron, or I should say the Republicans' latest coon. Yes, I said coon. It is completely okay to say coon because sometimes you have to call a spade, and let's be honest, the new Kentucky AG is definitely bought and paid for. So, with that being said, we are going to get into the Breonna Taylor situation momentarily, but just some things I need to get out the way first. Mostly importantly, Florida. Why do I say Florida? Is because Florida, Governor DeSantis, wants to criminalize protesters and protect drivers who hit people. Yes, he wants to protect, he is actually putting in, or I should say, forcing legislation to go ahead and literally and figuratively put in legislation that will protect protesters at the same time will also protect drivers that run over individuals during protests. I wish I could make this up, especially since it being in Florida. Not to mention the simple fact of the matter is, he's trying to protect people like this. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Governor DeSantis wants to protect people who literally and figuratively will run over folks in protests. And that's not the only one. There's actually another one too, where he also wants to protect people like this.
Breonna Taylor decision. New protests across the country overnight, and dozens arrested after another night of unrest in Taylor's hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. Alex Perez is there on the ground for us where the nighttime curfew just ended. Good morning, Alex.
Hey, good morning, Michael. This city is still very much on high alert. Things were relatively peaceful until nightfall when we saw more clashes with police demanding justice for Breonna. Overnight, peaceful crowds marching through the streets in major cities across the country. Yet acts of violence ensuing in Los Angeles, 2 incidents involving vehicles. Watch this truck slam into a protester. Witnesses nearby attacking the driver before they speed away. And the news chopper capturing a dramatic chase after this white car drove through a group of people. A truck quickly pursuing the car and cutting it off, the situation escalating.
This is getting ugly really quick. Now you have protesters beating up that driver.
Police later finding the driver and taking him into custody.
Crazy, isn't it? That for some fact of the matter that little piece of legislation can protect drivers who have literally just did that. And that's just two. There's actually been at least five. There's actually been five actually recorded incidents of people running through protesters and killing, sometimes hurting them. And this isn't the first time. We all forget Charleston. We also forget Charleston, South Carolina. Not to mention the guy in the Dodge Challenger that ran through a group of people, backed up, and tried to flee. Who killed several people? Actually killed several people, including two of the protesters. Well, actually, I scratched that. 4 protesters, and then many others were injured. And now he wants to put in legislation in his home state to protect this. I cannot tell you if this is not a wake-up call for a lot of people to really see who we have in office, now is the perfect time. Because keep in mind, DeSantis is pretty much Trump's errand boy. So he's going to do whatever he wants. Even more so that even in Florida now, which again, you would think because of the COVID-19 cases we have out there, that everybody should actually be paying a little bit more attention. Unfortunately, not the same in Florida. Oh no. Florida has to be Florida, man. And which again, Governor DeSantis, I keep calling him DeSantis, my apologies, signed an executive order yesterday allowing bars and restaurants to open immediately at 100% capacity. He said, end quote, there will be no limitations from the state of Florida. And again, keep in mind about COVID-19 cases, guys. We have not forgot about them. And this is the part that I want to sit there and say so much about COVID-19. It has definitely not gone away. In the same sense, I do not be surprised about the simple fact of the vaccine. Because again, we've heard vaccine talk about it, and again, it should be very, very taken with a grain of salt. Because I've said this before on many podcasts, I'll say it again. It is very highly unlikely that a vaccine is created in the same sense that an epidemic has started. Just because a lot of people are saying that there is a vaccine out there right now, please check the CDC, please check the National Health Institute, please check the World Health Organization and Doctors Without Borders and every other certified physicians board, because nobody is reporting a working vaccine for COVID-19. There are many vaccines out there that are still going through human trials, but as of right now, there is not a working cure. And honestly, I'm not going to trust anything Doritos says about a working vaccine. That's just me. But again, with the whole idea of Florida reopening at 100% when COVID cases are now reaching 7 million cases, should be a big-ass concern. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is, Florida is a tourist spot. Yes, for Disney World. Yes, for all the amusement parks, for the beaches, however you see it. The problem is, restaurants cannot open at 100%. That is the cold, hard truth. Bars cannot open at 100%. That is, again, the cold, hard truth. Even here in my home state of Tennessee, we have idiots like Governor Lee that's trying to push for Nashville to open like we're hurting. Well, of course, which is understandably so. Small businesses and tourism is completely down. However, again, what's worse? Having a lack of tourism or having multiple COVID-19 cases? Because trust me, they are still out there. And it makes no sense about this point to go ahead and open when literally at this point, no state at this point is ready to be open back into 100% capacity, because so many people would rather be making money than actually staying home and avoiding being sick. I've seen COVID-19 up close. I've seen what it does to families. I've seen how it does to people. It makes no sense to believe that we're beyond the worst of it, because we're not. But again, if you haven't done it already, wear a goddamn mask. It's not that fucking hard. And again, I apologize. Like I said, I'm trying to avoid profanity, but it's going to be a battle today. But moving right along, guys, here's another reason why I'm doing all this first, because I want to get to the Breonna Taylor situation. So just bear with me, because that's a lot of meat on that dog's bone before we get to it. But I also do want to point out the reason why voting is important, because I've heard Dorito say, Dorito meaning Trump, I will never call him President Trump, but Dorito has said some wild shit, and this should very much alarm you.
Mr. President, real quickly, win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? There has been rioting in Louisville. There's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and you'll have we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
Yes, that should very much alarm you. The current Dorito president right now is sitting there saying, would you be okay if you lost the election and had to do a transfer of power to the next president? Which in this case looks, if everybody does their job, could possibly be old man Biden. Trump sits there and says, well, no. Not because of the ballots. I've been complaining about the ballots. I've been complaining about this. I've been complaining about that. And no, I honestly think that we should get rid of the ballots. You know, we should have a continuation. Again, guys, I cannot stress this enough. Dorito does not care about whatever you need, because he needs the presidential seat. I have said this on many a podcast, and I will say this again. He is fighting such a battle on so many fronts that he needs the presidential seat to stay clear of this. I cannot stress that enough. He needs the presidential seat to dodge his taxes. He needs the presidential seat to dodge the Russia investigation. He needs the presidential seat to basically have the DOJ represent him in a sexual assault case and other harassment cases. He needs the presidential seat to stave off New York attorney generals who want to look into his family's businesses for money laundering and other crimes. I cannot stress this enough that Donald Trump does not care about the American people. He is literally showing you that he wants to keep the presidential seat throughout all possibilities to avoid his whole entire family going to jail. This is why I keep on saying the whole entire time, I do not understand people who vote for Trump unless you're rich, racist, or xenophobe. One of the two, or all three, actually. And again, it is amazing to me when you see crowds like this, and this is the stuff he says.
Trail in Florida.
I'm working my ass off. I'm in Texas. I'm in Ohio. I'm in North Carolina.
Rallying supporters in Jacksonville.
We're unified.
Looking ahead to Tuesday night's debate with rival Joe Biden and targeting the former vice president's stamina.
They'll give him a big shot or something, and he'll go out there. He'll have a lot of energy. He'll have energy. He'll be like Superman for about 15 minutes.
But in Washington, unanswered questions and growing concern after the president refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power if he loses the election. His press secretary was asked for clarification.
But I'm asking a very direct and very simple question. If the president loses this election, will this White House, will this president assure us that there will be a peaceful transfer of power? It's a very simple question.
The president will accept the results of a free and fair election.
The White House chief of staff with a similar explanation.
If every ballot is counted and if it's a fair election, we have a history of a peaceful transition of power.
But President Trump once again stoking doubt about the fairness of the election.
We want to make sure the election is honest, and I'm not sure that it can be. I don't know that it can be. We have to be very careful with the ballots. The ballots, that's a whole big scam.
Democrats on the attack.
That may be what his friend Putin does in Russia.
You are not in North Korea. You are not in Turkey. You are in the United States of America. It is a democracy.
Republicans also speaking out.
I can assure you it will be peaceful.
The Senate unanimously passing a resolution Thursday reaffirming its commitment to a peaceful transition after the election.
We've had an orderly transfer of power every 4 years since Washington was selected for a second term in 1792.
Earlier in the day, the FBI director told Congress there's been no evidence of widespread voter fraud.
We have not seen historically any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether it's by mail or otherwise.
But this morning, questions are being raised in Pennsylvania, where the FBI is investigating the mishandling of 9 military ballots that were mailed in and were eventually thrown away in a dumpster. Officials say at least 7 of the 9 votes were for Trump. While the investigation is ongoing, there's been no indication of any widespread problem.
Okay. And like I said before, this is Doritos' now new parameter, which means he is setting a narrative. Much like the Breonna Taylor case, where you saw the Coon AG set a narrative. This is Trump setting a narrative. He wants to go ahead and sit there and say that if he loses, that's because of voter fraud. It's because of ballots not being this and that. And the thing about it is, guys, like the FBI said, there has never been any wide case spread. Historically, there's never been a case of major voter fraud or infringement or anything of that nature. Never in the history of our voting system. It's amazing that Doritos talking about mail-in votes now, when literally and figuratively he's been doing mail-in voting for the last 4 elections. And what's so funny about it is, even though he's moved to Florida, he still does mail-in voting. Sounds a little bit hypocritical, doesn't it? So again, like I said before, guys, voting is so crucial. It was crucial when we were first having our first black president. It is now crucial that we need to get rid of America's 27th idiot as president. I mean, at this point, Bush the second looks like a genius compared to Trump, and he got us into a war. So again, voting, guys, is important. I cannot stress it enough. If you haven't registered, please register. Definitely tell others, because we need to make sure there's such a shadow of a doubt. Because trust me, the Republicans and Dorito will pull every trick out the book in order to keep a Republican president in the presidential seat. Don't believe me? Look at Bush versus Gore. You saw how much of a fight that was. Imagine Dorito knowing that he knows the lawyer system pretty well, because pretty much he has learned to sue everybody out of money in court, or learn to file bankruptcy, and yet people call him a successful businessman. Right. And speaking of success, and I mean this in the most insulting way possible, Trump decides that, I'm going to go ahead and release my health care plan, which he did talk about, which he did talk about in North Carolina, where he sat there and said in a speech that he, quote unquote, promised the highest standard of care anywhere in the world, before signing an executive order guaranteeing protections for pre-existing conditions, and then pledging to ban medical surprise bills. An executive order guaranteeing protections for pre-existing conditions. Wait, isn't that what the ACA is? And guys, I cannot stress this enough. How dumb he is. That he had to put in, and he sat there and said an executive order guaranteeing protections for pre-existing conditions. No, I think the black guy before you already had that part covered. And it's the reason why the Affordable Care Act exists, because the Affordable Care Act main goal is to allow people to get insurance with pre-existing conditions and not be banned from having insurance. That was the whole point. Even more so, this is his. Of course, he doesn't give a lot of how should we say, information. But then again, it's Trump. Why should we expect anything less? He turns around and sat there and says, and this is kind of scary, that his directive is promised, and quote unquote, to investigate executive actions and regulatory actions that we can take that will ensure patients are nonetheless protected against surprise medical bills, should Congress fail to pass legislation by the start of 2021. Surprise medical bills, that's a new one. Trump further announced that he planned to mail $200 discount cards to Medicare beneficiaries to put toward prescription drug copays. And he also through his White House aide, promised that administration will continue to heavily invest in research and innovative treatments for complex health conditions. And that was the gist of what he discussed. So let me break that down real quick as far as all that goes. The fact that he's talking about, well, there'll be no more surprise medical bills. When was there a surprise medical bill? Every medical bill that I ever received always showed up. It was never like 2 years later, surprise. You know when you went to urgent care to get those stitches? Here's the bill. I don't see that with this. I don't. That to me is literally full of air. Now the $200 discount cards to Medicare beneficiaries, that sounds so much like Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan, the former Speaker of the House, his ass wanted to get Medicare, so he had such a hard on for Medicare that you thought he was on Viagra. He wanted to gut Medicare. He wanted to cut Social Security. That dude went after that so bad that it's amazing to me that he still remained House Speaker for as long as he did before John Boehner. That's just me. And the sole fact of him saying that he's going to mail discount cards to help with drug copays kind of goes back on what he says about his executive order last month, where he sat there and said he was going to sign an executive order to lower the cost of drug prescriptions. And this is why I sit there and say he never had a plan to begin with. Right now, and I'm going to say this very plainly, healthcare companies love, and I stress this very heavily, healthcare companies love the status of the American healthcare system right now because they are making a killing. They're also making profits. And I've said this before. The problem with the American healthcare system is it's a profit system. And that's where the problem is. They would rather you dole out hundreds upon thousands in premiums and then pay buku bucks for medication, sometimes life-saving medication, like insulin, like albuterol, like inhalers, things of that nature that you have to pay so much for. And at the same time, the only people that are winning are the healthcare companies. You know them. United Health, Cigna, Aetna, Humira. I can keep going down the list. HCA. And those are just three here in Nashville. And if you look to see that the top CEO of all these companies are making billions. And again, if you look at their customers, I always said it best, if you honestly want to know how well a healthcare company is doing, look how many people are complaining about it. I can tell you off the bat, look at any of these healthcare companies, everybody hates their healthcare. Now, understandably so, and I've said this before about the ACA, because again, were you being mad about your healthcare plan is not directed at former President Obama. It's not. It should be directed at healthcare companies because the ACA doesn't control prices. Obamacare doesn't control your premiums. It's all set prices by the health insurance companies. They're the ones that set the prices. They're the ones that they're the ones that lobby to make the U.S. a closed-off drug market, which means that we can't have open other drug markets with Mexico, with Canada, or the European Union, or anywhere else. They set that standard. They pretty much did a blackout as far as selling insurance across certain territories. The health insurance companies designed that for maximum profit. They did not design that with you in mind. So, I don't expect Trump to turn around and sit there and actually change anything because he never had a plan to begin with. And you can tell by the lack of care. What'd you guys say? Alex, even if you don't like Biden, the most important thing is to look at which candidate is fascist. Yes. Even if you don't like Biden. Biden said Biden wasn't my first choice. I was hoping for a Sanders and Warren ticket. I was hoping that, like I said, is Kamala Harris still have a lot to prove? Yes. But at this point, they are the better choice versus Pence, very quiet and sometimes looks like a serial killer Mike Pence. And of course, the orange baby Dorito. Yes, Biden and Kamala's are a better choice by far. But are we going to demand more out of them? Yes, as we should. And what'd you say? $200 prepaid card for a lot of people that barely scratches the surface. It sounds more like a bribe than a haircut plan. It is. It is throwing a bone out there for everybody else to literally and figuratively be like, well, he's put out something. After nearly nearing the end of the first presidential term, he's put out something. Okay, so aside from that, like I said before, again, guys, this should all be what should be considered when going to the polls. Because personally, I have yet, and I've said this very heavily, if you vote for Trump, if you vote for Trump, I'm not immediately calling you an idiot. I really want to know because, like I said, if people who only vote for Trump seem to fit in 5 categories: racist, rich, bigot, xenophobe, and ignorant. Those are the 5 categories. You have to somehow fall in those 5 categories for me to understand that you like Trump. Because again, if you're not any of those, I still wonder why you're voting for Trump. It's like women voting Republican. I really want to know. Because it seems like you're voting against your own interests. But I digress. But now we're at this point, guys, we are going ahead and get into the elephant in the room. We are going to talk about the events of this week surrounding Breonna Taylor, and it's better to go ahead and start it's better to go ahead and start historically because we heard the coon Daniel Cameron as the AG try to explain it, and here it is historically as far as the news and things of that nature came out.
What's happening here? You're looking at pictures now. This is New York City, where there are hundreds of protesters who are out and about. Our Athena Jones is with them covering this story for us. She said that this protest started at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn and is now somewhere in East New York. These are pictures now from New York from our affiliate WABC. You can see an extremely large crowd of people out on the streets of New York City this evening. Of course, they're upset and marching about the charges that were filed against one officer on the Breonna Taylor case and not the other 2 officers who are involved, that the charges for the one officer not related specifically, I should say, to Breonna Taylor's death, but the way he conducted himself during the shooting that evening. I want to get now to pictures from Louisville, Kentucky. I believe we have 2 reporters who are on the scene there. And that's Shimon Prokopez and our Jason Carroll. There was a 9 o'clock curfew in Louisville, Kentucky. There are still people out, but the shooting of 2 police officers happening earlier. The police chief confirming 2 officers shot there. One is in surgery and stable. The other one is alert, not in surgery. They're being treated at a local hospital. Still people out on the street despite a curfew in Louisville, Kentucky. And there are protests also happening in Washington, D.C. and
Okay, so actually at that point, that is actually the first night. Of course, this is after AG Daniel Cameron did sit there and say that all 3 officers were not going to be charged with murder. 2 of the officers were actually justified. 1 officer would be charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment. And this is the problem I have with this. Because I intentionally played the video earlier of Daniel Cameron giving his explanation. And if you've seen my Facebook post and you've seen me go live that very same night, for the simple fact of the matter, I point out the holes in this whole entire thing. Number 1, I've never seen the police knock on a door where you have a no-knock warrant. He explains the whole idea of the no-knock warrant and sits there and says the police do not have to knock. They can just literally kick in the door to your home. That's the whole point of a no-knock warrant. It has to be signed off by a judge and reviewed by a police commander before police can do that. The simple fact of the matter is that they knocked on a door and announced themselves as police kind of validates the whole idea of a no-knock warrant. At the same time, they said that they had a witness that sat there and heard the cops announce themselves as police and then knocked on the door. Really? Again, they also reported that it was also reported by several news outlets that other neighbors were interviewed and that no one else could confirm what one neighbor heard as them knocking on the door and announcing themselves as police. So again, I guess this one neighbor who has come forward, which by the way wasn't mentioned until the AG mentioned it earlier, was now seen as gospel. Aside from that, they seem to harp on the fact that the boyfriend shot the police first. Keep in mind, if they had a no-knock warrant and they broke in, I have been saying this the entire time. If you kick in my door and don't announce yourselves, and I'm waking up and I just hear someone break in, you damn right, I'm shooting you too. It's just the whole idea of, again, you're being waken up out of your sleep. You hear a door break or a window break. You hear somebody coming in. You have fractions of a second to react. Which again, I find it funny that gun advocates like the NRA, which again, NRA is racist anyway, are not coming out and sitting there saying, well, this is his defense. This is his right as a gun owner. This is the right to defend his property. You know, all this other crap the NRA and most homosexuals usually say. And yet, when it comes to a black man defending his home and does not know who he's shooting at, except the simple fact of the matter is that they are intruders, it's amazing how those gun advocates and homosexuals in the NRA are completely silent. Even more so, that of course when he fired, of course the officers returned fire, but the amount of bullets that were fired at Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend was excessive. Every other ballistics expert that has actually reviewed that information has sat there and said it is more than excessive to do that type of return fire, especially in an environment where you can't see the assailant. And then on top of that, he tries to use, as I like to call it, official jargon. He tries to sit there and say, well, the only one bullet actually caused the fatal blow, and she died right there on the spot. And again, the whole idea is, he says 2 officers were justified in their actions, while 1 officer would be charged for bullets that were fired into another person's home. Let's think about this for a second. And I find it interesting that when I talk about this case with people who seem to be on the side, well, the police did everything right. Did they though? It doesn't. Like I said, this is the reason why qualified immunity and things of that nature that the police have need to stop. Because keep in mind, the 3 officers didn't give their statements on the night that it happened. They gave it days later. Only because through qualified immunity, law enforcement officers don't have to report their side of the story until much later. They have a cooling off period, as they say. I was like, a cooling off? And for all those that don't know, yes, officers have the ability to wait days, sometimes weeks later, to give their side of the story to investigators. And you wonder for those that they arrest, they have to give their statements immediately. Kind of fucked up, isn't it? At the same time, they had to make. I said all this time that was given, and I've been saying this on my Facebook post. The way that the AG has explained this story, the way that the cops all seem to have the same likable story, and that there are no differences in anything of that nature, this sounds fucking orchestrated. Even more so, the simple fact of the matter is 5 bullets. I mean, the coroner reported 6 bullets that hit this woman, and the AG said 5. And of course, and later on in that clip, which actually is a full clip where he answers questions, one of the reporters has sat there and said, well, the medical examiner's report said that 6 bullets had entered Breonna Taylor. You're saying it's only been 5. So is the medical examiner wrong? And again, Daniel Cameron, and for all those that don't know, and I said this before, about Daniel Cameron when he became the AG, I was leery because, first off, it's Kentucky. Kentucky is so freaking red that it's not even funny. At the same time, the day that Daniel Cameron appeared at the Republican National Convention, that's when I knew that's when I knew that, I hate to say it, and I really was hoping I was wrong, but the time I saw that coon at the Republican National Convention was when I knew Breonna Taylor was not going to get justice. He was too busy being at the Republican National Convention because, unbeknownst to everybody, he's related to Senator Mitch McConnell. He married one of his nieces. Come up. Somebody came up on the come up and was appointed as the Kentucky Attorney General. So, not only was he a coon, he got his marching orders. That is the price of his position. And even more so, what should also be scary, is that now Daniel Cameron is on the list of potential picks for Supreme Court justice by Trump. I cannot stress the level of injustice that a lot of black people are feeling right now, and non-black people are feeling right now, because this story itself is so crazy that 3 white men are about to get away with killing a woman in her sleep. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't ever want to hear someone sit there and, if you're going to defend the police, defend the police. Be your Blue Lives Matter bullshit, then blue line all you want to. The thing about it is, what you saw right here was the most clear-cut story of criminal negligence since Emmett Till. And the scary part about this is, when that decision came out, was also the very same decision, I think, almost, I want to say almost 75, 85 years ago, somewhere along those lines. But within that time frame, Emmett Till's case, where 2 white men were found not guilty, even though they admitted in court that they killed Emmett Till. The person who allegedly whistled at a white woman, and then a white mob decided to riot and string him up and beat him down, light him on fire, and then hang him. Yeah. To the point to where he was unrecognizable, to where his mom decided to have an open casket for the world to see. That Emmett Till. And who knew, almost 85 or so years later, you now have 3 white men who may not have admitted to killing Breonna Taylor, but did so when the evidence was there, and now they're about to walk. That's fucked up. But moving right along, guys, as far as in the Breonna Taylor situation, they are asking after that Breonna Taylor's family is demanding the release of grand jury testimonies and transcripts, and says that this will help because even though the Kentucky Attorney General has ruled on this case and will move forward with 3 cases of wanton endangerment, there still is a federal investigation into the situation that is still ongoing, and they hope that the transcripts will release because, honestly, the reason why they want those transcripts is to see exactly what was presented to the grand jury. They want to see it. And I've been saying this before, that the simple fact of the matter is the Kentucky Attorney General can show whatever he wants to the grand jury. He is not, and I hate to say this, he's not inclined to show everything. He's there to pursue a narrative. He's there to sit there and get the indictments that he wants if he so chooses. And it's honestly been said by many attorney generals in the past when they're doing grand jury indictments. They'll show whatever they want. They're not inclined to show everything. They can paint a picture to where they can get the jury they want and they can get the indictment if they want it. And that alone should tell you a lot. It really should. But hopefully, depending on since Kentucky does have a Democratic governor, we will see if he's able to get that or the AG to release it. But with all this being said, guys, this does remind me of a segment that I saw on Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. If you haven't seen it, he has a wonderful section. He did actually a wonderful section about police. And honestly, the story, it is a little long, so I'm going to apologize. But I think every bit of information he has right now is so freaking vital. So just bear with me. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. But again, all the information he gives makes fucking sense. Okay, and I'm going to cut it off here just because, like I said, it's a lot to process. But what I want to get into with John Oliver, because he actually showed a lot as far as the inconsistencies and the business of police and how messed up it is. And I understand, guys, I did get a lot of bats about the fact that Facebook bopped it, so we're going to dispute that to where it can be viewed earlier, it can be viewed later. But for all those that can't comment on this right now, I certainly apologize. It seems Zuckerberg just doesn't want to hear the truth. But we're going to keep on rolling, and of course, the entire recording its entirety will be available later. So let's go ahead and get to the heart matter that's also going to scare us. That, of course, with RBG barely being lukewarm in the ground, it seems that Trump and his Republican buddies are going to move forward as far as trying to go ahead and fill in her seat. They intend to pick Amy Coney Barnett for Supreme Court. She's actually one of the lower judges that Trump had appointed earlier in his first term. I should say in his current term, and this is freaking scary because Amy Barnett is literally everything. She is a Republican's wet dream, except that she's a woman. The only difference is she is a very hard stance. She is literally a person that follows the Constitution to a T, but she'll put God first before everything, which again, that should be very alarming. Because the reason why, if this woman is elected and put in, that she could actually go against several Supreme Court decisions, such as Roe versus Wade. Again, that seems to be the biggest one since Roe versus Wade allows for abortion to be legal in the United States, because a woman should be able to choose what she does with her body, and that's her own fucking business. Again, with this individual being appointed, if she is the Supreme Court justice, that would mean that the Supreme Court has already leaning to a conservative side, makes it the point that any decision that a conservative group or conservative Republicans want to push forward would more than likely go in their favor at the Supreme Court. Now, I will say this, that doesn't automatically mean a guarantee. Considering the last time the Supreme Court actually made a decision on certain things, it was actually the conservative judges that actually voted and were against it. Two of them being Kavanaugh and Anthony Scalia at the time. Well, I'm sorry, not Anthony Scalia, because he wasn't alive at the time when Kavanaugh was being appointed. Between Kavanaugh and another, who were both Trump appointees, by the way, that actually voted against it. So I'm not saying that it's not entirely possible, but I'm saying that a fully leaning conservative Supreme Court justice bench makes me very nervous. Even more so, like I said before in the previous podcast, you do not have to have previous experience to be a Supreme Court justice. And again, it's scary. It's scary that the highest court in the land does not require previous experience. If that's the case, I need to apply for jobs to say experience. I'm like, you don't need to have experience being a Supreme Court judge. I don't need experience being a CEO. But anyway, moving right along, guys. Of course, the vaccine news that I was talking about earlier, well, Trump decides that he's going to blame something else for it.
The total number in the U.S. nearing 7 million, and the CDC is forecasting that the death toll will climb to 226,000 by mid-October. Whit Johnson is tracking the new developments. Good morning, Whit.
George, good morning to you. The issue of trust is front and center when it comes to a new vaccine, with more Americans worried about the possibility of politics interfering with the science. New York and a handful of other states are taking matters into their own hands, planning to conduct their own reviews of any new vaccine before it goes public.
This morning, the nation's top infectious disease expert says he will fully support safety guidelines for a COVID-19 vaccine set by the FDA.
If the FDA career scientists, if they look at it and say, we really feel strongly we should go this way, I would back the scientists.
This coming a day after President Trump raised the possibility the White House could step in and overrule the FDA if the agency came up with stricter standards. Most of the scientists and doctors on the president's task force warn a vaccine before Election Day is extremely unlikely. The FDA promising earlier this week all vaccine decisions it makes will be based on safety and effectiveness standards, not politics. New York and at least 5 other states and D.C. saying they will conduct their own review of any vaccines that are approved by the federal government, even if that means a delay in distribution.
Frankly, I'm not going to trust the federal government's opinion. And I wouldn't recommend to New Yorkers based on the federal government's opinion.
And now White House Task Force Coordinator Dr. Deborah Birx is speaking out, saying she is not planning on leaving her job after rumors surfaced saying she was unhappy with her role on the team.
Do I look like a person that's diminished? And we're in the middle of a pandemic that's affecting Americans. And as an American, I think I can do the best service to my country right now by serving in this role.
Across the country, cases of COVID-19 are on the rise in 32 states, as a new study from the CDC suggests young adults appear to be driving the recent community spread. looking at southern states over the summer, finding that increases in positive cases among 20 to 39-year-olds came days before increases in those older than 60. The city of Boulder now banning both indoor and outdoor gatherings for groups of any size for 18 to 22-year-olds after it found that nearly 80% of recent COVID cases in town were affiliated with students at the University of Colorado Boulder. And a community in Iowa devastated by the death of Julie Ebel, a local activist devoted to helping the homeless, the Sioux City resident diagnosed with COVID-19 just last week.
It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care who your family is. It doesn't care if you have children at home. None of that matters because it can affect you in the drop of a dime.
A painful time for so many across the country. We're also learning about a new large-scale study out of Houston. It hasn't been peer-reviewed yet, but it found that the COVID-19 virus has already mutated multiple times, perhaps making it even more contagious now. However, so far, no evidence that it's more deadly.
Also tonight, the coronavirus here.
Sorry about that. So yes, it's amazing that they're talking about vaccines now, and the simple fact of the matter is just that there is not, again, and I've said this before, historically, there's never been a vaccine in the same year as an epidemic. Vaccines take at least 2 to 3 years to cultivate, create, test, and then retest before it's distributed to the public. So if anybody's talking about a COVID-19 vaccine right now, I would be very, 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 very cautious and not take it. Simply put, I'm definitely not going to take advice from a president that told you to ingest bleach, take hydrochloroquine, stay in the sun, and about 19 other things that he's lied about that people have actually tried and actually died from. Speaking of things that people are dying from, folks, if you have kids, I understand TikTok is very addictive. It is funny. People do get creative on there. But unfortunately, we still do have challenges. Challenges like the period challenge. I'm sorry, they're dumbass challenges to me. I don't like dumbass challenges. If people paid attention to voting the same way they paid attention to these dumbass challenges, we wouldn't have half the stuff that we have right now. That being said, guys, apparently there is a new challenge out there that involves Benadryl. Now, for all those that don't know, Benadryl is an antihistamine that actually helps with allergic reactions, things of that nature. Unfortunately, there is a so-called Benadryl challenge out there in which teenagers are ingesting high doses of this allergy medication to induce hallucinations. Now, of course, the FDA is stepping in and sitting there saying, please do not do this. It is basically an antihistamine and allergy medication, and again, just don't do it. But then again, I shouldn't be surprised because there was that Tide Pod challenge where you had kids literally biting Tide Pod, ingesting laundry detergent and things in your body that don't need to be there. Of course, the thing about it is, though, with children, it's the same way like Kurt Cobain said in Teen Spirit when he was in Nirvana. They're all just contagious and they're stupid. And at the same time, kids are going to follow them. So again, like I said, I know TikTok, when everything else is going on, is dangerous, but at the same time, we definitely need to keep ahead of that. And like I said, it gets to the point now I worry about kids and what they'll follow, and unfortunately they'll follow this. And hopefully they don't follow this. I really hope they don't, because that is a dangerous medicine to be taking in high doses. Also, in other stories, guys, we talked about landlords. Of course, with landlords right now, landlords are not liking the fact that there right now is a national moratorium on evictions, things of that nature. So people who haven't been able to pay their rent in months, thankfully, are not being evicted. However, with the actual landlords and those who own rental properties are now suing, because they're trying to figure out, because at this point they are very much peeved that their tenants are allowed to stay and they're still paying for upkeep and they're not getting assistance for it. And the thing about this is, what I've said this before, that the landowners and leasing groups and people that own these areas, again, and I've said this before, that yes, they deserve compensation, but again, that's the failure of the administration. That's the failure of local governments. Because the simple fact of the matter is, yes, you are making sure that nobody gets put out of a home, when COVID-19 is eliminating jobs that'll never come back, and let's just be honest, there are jobs that will never come back. And at the same time, you have people trying to keep a roof over their heads, try to keep food on the table, trying to keep their utilities on, things of that nature. And I understand from the landlord side of it, is this that bills are still expected to be paid, upkeep is still needed, you still got to pay employees. I understand that. This is why I say it's a failure of the government, because the failure of the government can turn around and sit there and say, well, let's actually provide substantial assistance for landlords and rental properties. I mean, you've been doing it for farmers the entire term. I can't tell you how many times that $1 billion bill was put out for farmers. I think they've now received 4 times now they received $1 billion assistance. And I will be honest, not every American farmer got this. When that's a whole nother mountain to go over in that case. But the simple fact of the matter is, more bills have been put out for farmer assistance than they were for landlords and rental property owners. And again, that is a problem. That should have actually been associated. So I can understand why they can be suing, but at the same time, I can also understand that at the same time, you can't be mad at the tenants, because if the tenants could pay, they would. But you can't get blood from a stone. You just can't. But again, that personal paycheck protection program is really a failure anyway, because it didn't go to companies in need. It went to corporations that already had money and wanted to use that money to pay bonuses out to executives, which some of them were caught and eventually did return the money. But let's be honest, if the paycheck protection program worked as it should, then at this point, landlords and leasing properties would not be complaining. And speaking of things to complain about, guys, I'm not going to show the video on this one because it's a little bit long. It doesn't really go into what I want to. But in Buffalo, the same place where a man was injured, a man that was protesting, in which officers pushed him to the ground, and the man actually had head injuries. Well, in this case, the mayor has decided that police officers in Buffalo, New York, are no longer required to wear their names on their uniforms. That should be scary. The decision comes from people sharing officers' personal information on the internet, which is now known as doxing. Instead of sharing their names, the officers are now permitted to use their badge numbers instead. Here's the thing that I don't understand. How is it that officers have more protection by identity and anything else than almost the average citizen? Yes, we should know your name. And that's the thing I don't get. Yes, we should know your name. Yes, we should know your badge number. Because you know why? You know everything about us. Why should you be anonymous and us have to be put out there for the world to see? And that's the one thing I've never understood. Because they're worried about the police officers' information being shared. Okay. Because you have no problem telling the victim or the person's charge information within 24 to 48 hours. I don't see you protecting them unless they're a juvenile. And even so, that juvenile's information will eventually be released. But for some odd reason, you feel a need to protect a cop. I will never understand that. And speaking of other things, though, there is also another story that someone brought to my attention. I just wanted to bring this up. Was simple fact of the matter of also in Nashville, because we're going to be seeing a Daniel Hamburg case come up not too long from now. But this case was also brought up that also happened in May, and of course with the previous cases going on in the U.S., this kind of got lost. But this one is also slightly disturbing.
Black man during a high-speed chase in late May. The case seemed clear-cut. William Johnson Jr. was believed to have shot an off-duty officer just a few minutes earlier. The case was quickly forgotten when Minneapolis police killed George Floyd 4 days later, setting off nationwide protests. But WPLN's Samantha Max has been reviewing records of the incident.
Just after 9 p.m. on a Thursday night in late May, Metro Nashville police officer Daryl Osmond is on the phone with 911.
I'm having trouble breathing. Okay, I've got him coming, man. Just hang in there with me, okay?
Osmond is off duty, and he says he's just been shot in the shoulder. He was walking his dog outside his parents' house on a dark stretch of country road near the border of Ashland City.
So it was a Ford Flex Gray. I'm not sure if they were waiting on me. From Bill White, he had on a mask. He walked past me and opened fire.
Osment says the man is about 5'11" and not too thin. He says the man was wearing a mask, maybe because of COVID-19, and that he didn't recognize him. Osment isn't even sure which way the man drove off, but he seems certain of one thing. The man who shot him was white.
He said it was a male white, is what you thought?
Yes.
Okay.
Male white. Male white.
All right, they're behind something that matches that description, so hopefully we got them.
In a different part of town, an officer spots a Ford Flex SUV. Within a minute, a helicopter is hovering overhead.
I think they got the suspect vehicle. I think they're chasing him right now.
It's unclear from the tape how police can be certain that this Ford Flex is the right one. They've spotted it about 10 miles away, 8 minutes after the 911 call comes in.
They've got a pursuit going on right now on that guy. I think they've got him.
Okay, awesome.
It's a pretty unique vehicle, so hopefully it's the right one.
According to a Metro Police press release from the next morning, officers say they hear shots coming from the vehicle. They throw spike strips into the road just across the river from Bordeaux, so they hear more shots from the car. They keep chasing. As the car zooms onto Interstate 440, a spike strip blows the tires out. Police say the driver opens the door and they hear gunfire. 3 officers fire back. 6 bullets tear through the man's legs, his knee, his foot. They strike his femoral vein. And paramedics confirm at the scene that William Johnson Jr. has died. WPLN News requested the 911 phone tape the morning after the May 21st shooting. Metro Police released it last week, and it raises questions about one major piece of the police narrative. Officer Osment said 3 times that a white man shot him, and Johnson was black.
So how do we not know it was a mistake of identity?
That's his sister, Brandy Johnson.
And then they could have started chasing the wrong person and scared him half to death.
Brandy says her brother suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder after serving in Iraq. She wonders if he was speeding away because he was fleeing a crime scene or because the police pursuit triggered his PTSD. An autopsy did find a byproduct of cocaine in Johnson's blood, but the medical examiner's office says there's no way of knowing when he ingested it, so it's unclear if he was feeling the effects that night. The TBI says it can't comment while the investigation is ongoing. But Metro Police say Officer Osment was likely in shock while speaking to the 911 dispatcher and gave the best description he could given the lack of lighting. They also say the physical description is just one piece of evidence and that other details, like the car model, also pointed them to Johnson. His sister still has her doubts.
They gave a description of a car. He didn't give a license plate number. If he gave a license plate number, then you could kind of be like, okay, but it was just a car description.
WPLN News checked with the Tennessee Department of Revenue. They say there are only about 4,000 Ford Flexes registered in the entire state. Just 1,100 are gray or silver. That's compared to nearly 221,000 Ford F-150s, the state's most popular vehicle. Still, Brandy says she's waiting on more information about what happened to her brother, Billy.
He was a human. He had a family. He had grandkids. He has a daughter. He has friends. People are still finding out about him gone or like reaching out to us like, we cannot believe it. He was the most sweetest, genuine person you would ever meet.
4 months later, the Johnson family is still trying to make sense of all the bits and pieces. They want law enforcement to test the bullet that pierced Officer Osment's shoulder to see if it matches Johnson's gun.
You know, we just want to know if it's true, it's true. And if it's not, then, you know, we just want what's right.
The TBI says that it's still gathering and reviewing evidence. For
All right, and that's actually the other case that's here in Nashville right now that was actually brought to my attention that I heard about, but I didn't really follow it, and I will be following it now. Where it's amazing to me that now, of course, the officer said plain as day that it was a white male, and he was questioned. He was questioned 3 times, and the fact that they went after a Ford Flex, and again with William Johnson Jr. Being a former army personnel and having PTSD, I can imagine that, you know, there's a lot of unanswered questions. And at the same time, the fact that this man died, Because of police shooting at him, it does open up a lot. And the transcript there, even though as we were listening to it, still even brought to the fact of the matter of what exactly happened. And again, I can only say that, it's one of those things where say you fit the description. That's why I said it's so scary. It is so very scary when you hear you fit the description. And it's like, dude, I'm a 6'2" black guy with locks. That's 85% of black people, of black guys here in Nashville. Could you imagine if a description like that went out and I'm sitting there walking about and an officer doesn't, use fucking common sense and sit there and go, well, it can't be him. He's right here, and they just reported it. Keep in mind that they picked up a Ford Flex on literally the other side, literally a different location to where the officer had reported he'd been hit. Even though the officer said clear as day it was a white male. So I can understand the family wanting to get closure. They're not immediately saying the police are at fault, but they're wanting closure. Just because the simple fact of the matter is there's way too many questions there that just aren't being answered, and I will continue to follow up on that, as well as the Daniel Hamburg case. Of course, that'll be coming up soon, which I say again, this whole thing about officers and qualified immunity and things of that nature, it just, all of that just culminates to there is a policing problem in the United States, and it's always been there since the start of those former slave catching groups. But with that being said, guys, our last story before we get to our feel good segment. Again, I've never understood why can't people just follow instructions? So, of course, I always say this about Best Buy wearing a mask. Even after I leave here today, before my other podcast start, I wear a mask. I'm wearing the mask that my girlfriend made for me because she made one for me. It's good enough for my face. It has Transformers on it. I do love it. But at the same time, it's a health thing. Like, knock on wood, I haven't been sick. I haven't had anything short. I haven't had anything major happen to me. Knock on wood for great health. That being said, I am still conscious of others. And this lady here at a Ohio football game decided that she's going to exercise her right not to wear a mask and not listen to the rules. Well, this happened.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Oh my God! Get off of me! You're not arresting me for nothing! I'm doing nothing wrong! What the fuck is wrong with people?
That's over a mask? Really?
Oh my God! You're not arresting me. You're not doing nothing wrong. I believe you. You're not arresting me for not doing nothing freaking wrong, man. Stop it! Let go of my wrist. Oh my God! Yes, what's wrong with you? Get off
That's unreal.
You're not arrested. I don't know. Okay, so do we arrest me?
It's a warning. You get a warning and then it's a $500 fine. You don't get arrested. You don't get arrested. Good job. In other news, the Marietta Tigers are beating Logan 22-6. Oh my God, he just tased her.
Wow.
What the fuck?
Wow.
That's unreal. All because this lady didn't have a mask and she didn't want to leave because she's watching her kid play football. That's unreal. Hey, where's your mask? Hey, where's your mask?
Remember, we're accepting together now, right, guys? We've done this how many times together?
So I just want to point out the hypocrisy in all this. It's amazing how people say, well, you should follow what the police do and things of that nature. and yet you were told to wear a mask at a football game in public. Now, of course, I have sat there and said that football games and stuff like that should not happen during coronavirus outbreaks and things of that nature. But hey, some people are going to figure out a way to make games happen. And if they say that you should have social distancing and they say you should wear a mask, okay, fine. But follow the rules. This woman out here obviously did not with her 5-year-old son. And of course, as you can tell, as she was asked repeatedly to wear a mask. It doesn't say so in the video, but in this, they said that she was repeatedly asked to wear a mask. She refused not to. She was asked to leave. She did not. So therefore, police removed her. It gets to a point, guys, where it's like, it's not about just your rights. It's about actually just being fucking responsible. Again, if you haven't faced the bouts or had any bouts with coronavirus, you are very lucky. Those who have had coronavirus will sit there and tell you that it is no laughing matter. It is no joke. It is devastating, and it can honestly kill you. For the simple fact of the matter is that you have people out here who are going to sit there and say, but you know, how long we been doing this? How long we down here? This is bullshit. And you hear the guy in the background, she was supposed to just get a warning and a $500 fine. No, that is a public health risk. She was asked to leave, and she chose not to. And I can really go on and on about this. I said, it's honestly, there are just some white people out there that believe that the rules are made to be broken, because if they break them, they think they're patriotic. If others do so that are not white, they consider them terrorists or thugs. Thugs is the new N-word, by the way. So I'm not surprised by her. I was like, you know, and he said he tased her. I said, yeah, because I'd rather he tased her than shot her, like most white officers would do. But again, wear the damn mask. It's not that fucking hard. So that's the stories we have for this guy. So we're going to go get into our Feel Good News segment, because Lord knows we need it this week. Usually on How the Frack We Got Here, we do talk about doom and gloom and things of that nature. But, you know, it's the weekend. We try to put you on a good note, leave you feeling great and things of that nature. So we try to do our best in ensuing those things. That being said, we're going to start with Disneyland. Disneyland did actually do unveil their mural of Chadwick Boseman, who did play Black Panther and very other iconic roles in movies such as Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall, James Brown, just to name a few. And this was the mural that they just released of him. As they say, this one's called King Chad. And honestly, like I said, I think it's great that they're trying to show solidarity as far as where they had the murals up. And I absolutely love it. Now, of course, we know now, of course, he did die of cancer that he was fighting, and at the point that no one knew, and that's the thing about this, everybody around all his people did not leak that he had cancer. No one knew that he had cancer, and this man was still able to pull out great movies. And honestly, I thought that was cool of Disneyland to do that. And also, two other stories I have here. One is a little bit of a tearjerker, because this is a child who was having hearing issues and gets to hear his mom for the first, gets to hear his mother's voice the first time because of implants. You might as well break out the tissues.
Right here, America Strong, the baby and his mother's voice. Mason McMillan, born in Richmond, Virginia, 4 months premature, weighing just 1 pound.
Hey, bud.
He would spend 158 days in the NICU. Gaining strength, his family and doctors, though, began to realize that Mason could not hear them. But this week at VCU Children's Hospital, Mason was getting fitted for his hearing aids. Sitting on his mother's lap, watch as Mason is about to hear his mother Lauren's voice for the first time.
Mason, hi. Can you hear me? Hi, baby. Hi. You can hear me? Yeah. Good job. Yeah, you can hear me. Yeah. Hi. Can you say hi? No. Do you like that? Do you like how everything sounds? Yeah.
Mason and his mother and father right here tonight.
Hi, David.
All home together and all still smiling.
Mason is so thrilled to be able to hear everything now. He just can't take his eyes off of whoever is speaking. Thank you so much for sharing Mason's video and telling his story. Say thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, good job. Yeah.
We thank.
Yeah, it made me want to cry. I'm not gonna do that because I'm not gonna do that because I can't. I gotta still do this podcast. So damn it. But the last story we got, guys, is honestly about a deserving nurse. And like I said, if you heard me say this on the podcast, I have said this more about nurses, educators, things of that nature. They definitely do deserve more than what they're getting right now. So if you're able to see a nurse or a doctor, nurse aides, doctor's aides, those that work in environmental services and hospitals, just say thank you. I mean, don't be a dick about it. Just honestly say thank you, because they're not getting what they should be getting. But at least hearing a thank you from somebody means that you care. But this will be the last story we got, guys.
I'm TJ with Good Morning America.
Hi.
I know you're wondering what in the world's going on, but you're live on Good Morning America right now. And I know what you're thinking, what's this crazy man doing out here in the rain? Well, I'm here for you. This rain could not keep me away, and I need you to make your way. Don't worry, you're going to get a little wet.
That's fine.
But I assure you, sister, we're about to brighten your day. So come on now. I know you folks here, so you make your way that way. But Andrea, I had so many people calling and telling me about you that I wanted to now come here and tell them about you as well. So come on down, get positioned. I want you to look, and everybody take a look at who Andrea is. As a kid, Andrea Dalzell was a force of nature.
Andrea did things that I don't think any other child did. She was vivacious, bouncy, she was always on the go, she never stopped moving.
But at 5 years old, her life changed forever when she was diagnosed with transverse myelitis, a neurological disorder affecting her ability to walk.
First, I thought it was just a little minor mishap that she had gotten, but it was very devastating.
I think I went completely numb. I blamed myself. I thought I didn't do something right. I thought there was something I could have done different that would have allowed her to walk. I stood outside the door and I promised myself I wouldn't do this, but I've never allowed her to see me cry. That was the most important thing for me.
First-time parents Sharon and Trevor were devastated, learning their daughter would never walk again.
She grew from 5 years old to 50 years old. She was like, Mom, don't worry, I'll be fine. She was assuring me that she was going to be fine. I became the child and she became the mother.
But with determination and dedication,
9, 8.
Andrea excelled in every aspect of her life, graduating with honors and receiving several major awards for her advocacy work and leadership.
My sister's been everything to me since I was small. So when I think of her, I just think of the ambitious person that she is, the go-getter, that drive.
Heroic. She's always been there for me in my darkest times, my bad times, and my happy times. She's just extremely hardworking.
The Brooklyn native now applying her ambition to a career in medicine.
She got so much pushback on becoming a nurse. It was amazing that she didn't drop out of the class. No, you can't do it. She's like, just watch me. Give me a chance to prove myself.
Andrea Dalzell.
And she did, becoming a registered nurse in 2018 and finishing her bachelor degree that same year. When the pandemic hit, Andrea decided she had to help.
They hired her on the spot. She went, she did the best job she could possibly ever do. They all loved her. I was so excited for her.
Now, she's a different kind of frontline worker, a nurse and department head for a local school.
She's not only extraordinarily professional and smart and good at what she does, but also very approachable, and the kids absolutely love her.
The reason why I like Miss Andrea is she's nice, helpful. Nurse Andrea is sweet and kind, and she's loving. We love you, Miss Andrea.
Now, Andrea, we're keeping our social distance here, but hello everybody, I'm TJ. What's it like? I was watching you, I don't know you, but yes. I'm seeing your story and seeing you watch your story.
Yeah.
What's it like to, you know your story, but to see people talk about you in such a way, what was that like?
I have no words. I just want to be able to give back to people. So many people poured into my life that if I can give just a little bit of that back, then I've done everything that I'm supposed to do in the world.
Why is that so important to you? Look, you've been through it in your life in a lot of ways. But we wanted to tell people not just about what you've been through, what you've overcome, and what you've accomplished, but now you're dedicating your life in so many ways to make sure to get the word out. People like to, they use the word disability, but they associate with that with a lack of capability, and that's a big deal for you.
It's huge because people with disabilities aren't living a death sentence. They're living life. And if I get to prove that every day, then I'm gonna do that, right? Like, I need to be able to change that narrative for others so that they know that if they're diagnosed with something, if they acquire a disability, that it doesn't stop there. Like, life still happens, and it's up to them to decide if they want to live it.
And people need to know you are looking at the only registered nurse in New York City that uses a wheelchair. That shouldn't be the case, and I know you're working on that. That shouldn't be the case. Mom, I was watching you as well. They were in on all this, by the way. You were watching that. What's it? It had to be devastating to get that news about your child, but now to see the young woman she's become.
It was life-changing and amazing. I'm so proud of her. She's out there pushing for what she didn't have when she became physically challenged, because she hates the word disabled, like you said. But she's doing great. I tell people, do not pity her. She is proud, she's a go-getter, and she's the driving force that will change the outlook on nurses and people in general.
And you jumped in there during the pandemic in New York, volunteered, wanted to help, and you were in the midst of this, and you said it's important for people to understand that we need more people who are physically challenged to be in the healthcare industry to help patients and understand them, the physically challenged folks.
You have to have people who have these disabilities, have these diagnoses being in healthcare. They need to know that, you know, people who are going into those healthcare facilities, those institutions, know that there's someone else that can connect on a level that is far beyond what is already there.
And you've done so much advocacy work, and I know, of course, anytime, money can help, okay? Well, that phase, like, you don't even know, brother, money can help. But I want to show you a little something here. Now, we're in touch. I know it's not a whole lot, but you could do something with $1,000, could you not?
Of course.
That could do work. Could you do something with $10,000? Because that's been donated to you now, $10,000.
Oh my God.
You know what? The sign keeps going. What could you do with $100,000, Andrea?
Go back to school.
Go back to school and do your work. But I have another zero because the Craig H. Nielsen Foundation is awarding you, gifting you a $1 million prize, unrestricted. You're part of their inaugural visionary prize that's going to 3 people. You're one of them, and $1 million unrestricted. This is not a joke. It's going to you from the foundation, Andrea.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I have no words. Thank you.
Tell me what you could do to further your cause with that.
I want to start a whole program for people with disabilities to be able to get into healthcare. They should be given a chance.
It's always been her dream that she can create a place where people who have disabilities can get up simple on a table. You go into a doctor's office. You can't get up on the table. Many times I had to lift her. They haven't come into the 21st century as yet.
Well, Andrea, this is a part of, look, we heard your story, and they believed in you so much that this is an unrestricted prize of $1 million. Make sure, I don't think I have another zero. I had to check though. But it's an absolute pleasure. Stray, George, look, we've done a lot of these Tell TJs, and we have handed out a lot of stuff, and Robin as well. You know how I feel about these, but this one's pretty special this morning, guys.
We have to say, I'm.
Again, I should have gave a tissue warning on that one. I just thought that was pretty cool. That simple fact the woman did not let her disability define her. She whooped its ass in so many ways. And so want to show that. But that's really all the stories that we got, guys, for this podcast. Again, I apologize. Apparently we did get Zuckerberg in the middle of the John Oliver post, and it may have prevented a lot of you guys from commenting or watching this. So I apologize heavily. We'll have to be a little bit better about it. I'm sorry. I'll have to be a little bit better about picking the clips and stuff like next time because, like I said, I know a lot of you guys watch this on Facebook, a lot of you guys watch this on YouTube, so we just got to be a little bit more careful about what we show and, before we get Zuckerberg because, let's be honest, he's watching everything. But the entire this recording will be on YouTube as well, and I believe once we dispute it with Facebook, it'll actually be released to where you can watch it on Facebook again, so we'll get there. I just, really apologize for that issue, for that inconvenience, guys, because I know a lot of you guys watching. I certainly appreciate it, which is what I'm getting to now, is that I do want to thank you guys. I do want to thank you for all watching this, or who tried to watch it live today, or watch any of the previous episodes, things of that nature. I cannot thank you enough because you guys actually inspired me to keep going with this. With this original idea that I had about this podcast was basically giving you all the facts, not giving you a narrative, not pushing an agenda, not trying to convince you in any way. It is allowing you to see all the facts and allowing you to make up your own mind is the whole point of what I want to do with this in the first place. So, before I do get out of here, I am not the only cat that doesn't have podcasts with this nature because there really is a few of us that have our own podcast, and I'm trying to quickly bring up their pages because I still don't have an actual graphic for them. I apologize. That's the word I was going for. I don't really have a graphic for them yet. So I'm just going to go to their pages. And since I have this free time or so to go ahead and get this out the way, let me just go to their pages momentarily and I can basically show you what they look like. I'll start with my first buddy, A who actually was watching this. If he is still watching this, let me tell you about his page at A who was my other brother from another mother. He has a couple of podcasts of his own. The first one is called the VSTs, or the Intercasts, as he likes to call it. Usually would be posted here, but as you can see, he does post a lot, including my share page. I appreciate that, brother. But he does have a few shows. The first one is called the VSTs, which is called the Intercast, which is a news podcast. That news can be music, video games, or trailers. I call him the king of trailers, weird trailers, because he seems to find the ones that are just out there. But every once in a while, he does find one that interests me, like Rent-A-Pal. I still say Rent-A-Pal is still one of the best horror movies I've seen in a very long time. He introduced me to that. He also has Random as Fuck, which is the pool of ratchets we sometimes dip our toes to take a break from life out chuckle. He usually does it every Tuesday to reset you on the weekend, to reset your week right. Usually has a bunch of videos set to a theme, and trust me, the videos are definitely memorable. And hopefully sometime today, we will have Rhythm This, we grown this over the rhythm, in which he will come forward with albums that we will all listen to and grade and think. We're not all music critics, but we like some things, and we all can agree we don't like jock. But again, but differences in music lead to great conversations. All of his shows can be found under his Facebook page at BigBZA. And of course, Big BZA on all social medias, especially his YouTube page at Young BZA and his Instagram and his Audio Mac, because he is a guy that likes to make beats, which brings me to Fonkin' Around, which is his creative process of making beats. Trust me, he is very talented in doing that, and I've always said that he needs to continue doing that. So definitely look at his Facebook page to see when he'll be posting. And now my other brother from another mother, Thomas Reed, aka the Mountain Puncher on Facebook, has his podcast. Unfortunately, it's still on hiatus right now, but he has a podcast called To Be Determined. What is To Be Determined? Well, if you've seen Thomas, and you've probably seen Thomas post his workouts daily on Facebook, and I'm talking like shit like this. Yes, I am talking shit like this. Where he does post his workouts on Facebook. He is a guy about fitness. He loves to work out. He loves to, work on himself, as you can definitely see, as he's sitting there just curling what looks to be 225s and a 50. So he's literally curling. Well, he was curling. Now he's basically skull crushing, but looks like he's skull crushing about 130 there. But again, he is a guy that loves fitness, loves to work out and talk about fitness, and the simple fact of the matter is he wants to help you reach your zenith as well, especially when he can have you doing stuff like this, which I think is still crazy that he trusts himself not to hit himself in his own balls. But again, that's my buddy. I love him to death. And of course, his To Be Determined podcast is on hiatus right now. But you can go to his Facebook page at Thomas Reed or his YouTube page at 2TBD to see previous episodes of To Be Determined. Now, as for yours truly, I do have a few podcasts of my own. Every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. is the Burned Out Podcast, in which I tell stories from an IT background as far as explaining what I have seen with special individuals, because as you heard from others say, I am they call me tech support for a reason. But I do try to tell funny stories about my experiences in IT just to lighten up you guys. And trust me, it's way better and less expensive than therapy for me to do that. Also, every Saturday, as you're seeing right now, from 10 a.m. to noon, is the How the Frack We Got Here podcast. Of course, a little bit later today, and I am happy to announce this, between 8 to 10 p.m. will be the Off Limits podcast, the podcast that does go there. I know we haven't had a podcast in a couple of weeks. That's okay, but we'll be back today with a new subject, and hopefully there is one subject I am going to cover that I'm going to go ahead and talk about right now. Now that I know that we have the interview locked down and ready to go, I always wanted to talk about sex workers. If you know me, I have a really, really interesting fascination with just certain worlds and just certain worlds of things that are out there, much like fandoms. There are so many things out there that are different and we don't know about, or we just assume that we have stereotypes about. And I wanted to cover the world of sex workers, considering the fact of the explosion of Demon Time and OnlyFans. And hopefully I've already scheduled a few interviews that I'm going to do with the podcast. And like I said, one of these days we are going to talk about it. It's not going to be this Saturday. It's not going to be this Saturday, on the 26th, on September 26th. No, that's going to be something different. But down the road, I hope to have that interview. I hope to have not only that interview, but that podcast very soon, because I think it'll be enlightening for a lot of people to understand certain things that are out there that just honestly, if we understood it, I think we'd be better for it. But again, it's not going to happen yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And also on Sundays between 7 and 9 p.m. is the Get Bit podcast. That is my blurred podcast in which I cover everything of pop culture, video games, comic books, sci-fi, television, movies, just overall things that a blurred and a nerd and a non-blurred and non-nerd would like. Of course, trust me, there's always something around the video game, especially around the video game pike. But all my shows can be found on my Facebook page at William Buchanan, or on Facebook or on YouTube. They have their own separate pages. So on either site, just look up the Burned Out Podcast, How the Frack We Got Here, the Off Limits Podcast, and of course Get Bit, that is GITBIT, to see every podcast that I've done thus far. That being said, guys, again, thank you all who have all been watching. Thank you if you're watching this on the playback, because I know a lot of you people will, just because we got Zuckerberg. It happens. And aside from that, like I said, it's COVID-19 out there. Please wear a mask. There's no excuse now, guys. We have seen what happens when you don't wear a mask. We are seeing now that they're trying to push forward really on a lot of BS that will cause a lot more increase in cases. The way we can mitigate these cases and make them go down is to honestly wear a mask, practice social distancing, go out only unless you have to. I know for me, today's cheat day, because my Saturdays are my cheat days, so I'm going to go find a White Castle somewhere and have fun. But you don't need to know all that. But again, be safe. If you're sick, stay at home. If you're really sick, you need to go to the hospital. COVID-19 is not a joke. It has taken people out. We are already over 200,000 plus deaths and counting. Be safe. Not only think about yourself, but think about others. And speaking of others, like I said before, if you see a doctor or a nurse's aide, doctor's aides, if I know people that work in hospitals, just simply say thank you. Please don't be a dick to nurses. I know there are attractive nurses and doctors. Don't be a dick. Don't make it weird. Just simply say thank you for all that you do. Move the fuck on. It's not that fucking hard. They don't get enough praise as it is, but honestly, just hearing a person tell them thank you for all that you do could possibly help out their day. And if you want to do more than that, hey, do it, but also do it with caution and indiscretion, because again, they're not given enough. Just like these educators out here should also be given their roses too, because they are also helping, the educators not only doing remote learning, but also the ones teaching kids right now, because let's be honest, a lot of parents are now seeing how hard it is to be an educator, so they should deserve their roses too. Aside from that, every other essential worker, whether you're a truck stop, whether you're a truck driver, whether you're a gas station or grocery store person, whether you work in UPS, DHL, FedEx, United States Postal Service, Amazon, any warehouse job that constantly has to put out products and things for people to enjoy. You guys are taking the exceptional risk at your health to make sure the rest of us in the world are going, so also thank you as well. Aside from that, guys, like I say about how the Frack We Got Here, this is not about trying to change your mind. I am not for that. There are many other news sites out there. There are many other podcasts out there that are either for the left, for the right, for the middle. I am all about the informing, which basically means that I give you all the facts. I lay them out in front of you and allow you to make up your own mind. Because as you can see, we go as hard on the Republicans as we do on the Democrats around here. So there is no alliance. It's just them finding out the truth. Because the whole point of the ability to inform actually means that you're not accepting everything at face value. You are literally going in and finding out the information through the information research and the digital art that we have here, and be able to certified sources, be able to show somebody what you found in hopes of inspiring them to do the same. Because an informed community can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Trump, and that's how the Frack We Got Here. So with that being said, guys, please be safe out there this weekend. Above all else, be kind. In the words of Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. Peace.